the News Channel 5 network. This is Score on Business.
Hey, welcome to Score on Business. I'm Pete Hendricks, a serial entrepreneur, and your host for today. Score is an organization that is a nonprofit very interested in small business and entrepreneurs succeeding and doing well. There's free coaching, there's low-cost classes. It's just a great opportunity, and the website is scorenashville.org. Now, let's get to some value here. So we are very lucky. We've got Dick Wallace as our first guest today. He's with the, he is president of the Alternative Board, and so he provides advisory expertise to business leaders in leadership and business plan execution. Oh. And thanks for being here.
My pleasure, my honor.
Tell us a little bit about the Alternative Board.
Succinctly, the Alternative Board is an antidote, provides two antidotes, alternatives to being alone.
Yeah.
You and I know that going through life in any endeavor, alone is unwise, fraught with danger, particularly in business. The reality is that most business owners, and certainly those in privately held companies, find themselves alone. Now, they are surrounded by people perhaps all day, but they have these 3 o'clock in the morning conversations with themselves that at the genesis of that conversation is the question, am I going to be in business next year? Am I becoming a commodity? Will I lose a key employee? What about all this competition coming into Nashville? Will there be a disruptive technology in my sector? Whatever. And they have to answer those questions alone. We provide an alternative, an antidote to that, a CEO peer board that they can join, meet with once a month in the morning, about 4 hours, and they get to process that 3 o'clock in the morning conversation with other CEOs who have their own 3 o'clock in the morning conversations. And they come up with the best answer to those questions together as opposed to alone. So that's one antidote. The other antidote is one-on-one coaching that we provide. Once a month with the CEO about his strategy, his or her strategy, and hold them accountable to execute the strategy they said they were going to execute that year. So it's about accountability, about group dynamic decision making.
Yeah, and high level.
Two antidotes, alternatives, two alternatives. That's the Alternative Board.
Okay. So what's the first question you ask a CEO?
Great question. When I reflected on this question you asked me, I go back to a quote my wife put on the bedside of my son when he was in high school. It's David Campbell, the founder of Saks Fifth Avenue, and the quote's this: "Discipline is remembering what you really want." So the first question I will ask a CEO if I'm going to work with them in any kind of advisory capacity is, why are you doing what you do?
Yes.
Why did you start this company? Why did you come back into business into this company? Why did you merge with this company? Why did you come back into the family business from outside the family business and so on? And to help them think through that, I use this metaphor. I said, just pretend for a moment that you're on a bicycle and you're steering that bike. The front wheel of that bike is your personal vision. And you're steering that bike somewhere where you want to take this company. Now, they may have articulated that, or they may need help articulating it, but that's where they want to go. Now, the rear wheel of that bicycle, think about that, that's the company itself. That's going to provide the momentum, the resources, whatever, to get them to their destination. What's important about that, knowing the answer to the why am I doing this in the first place, is that when we create strategies, action plans, business plans for the rear wheel, the company, that CEO has to see a connection, emotional connection and a reality connection between where they're taking really their life and what they want to do with that company. And if they can't see that connection, if we haven't made that connection, that plan is not going to get executed. But when they know that, yes, I have to execute this plan because it's going to take me where I want to go. So that's the first question I ask and emphasize.
And that's so critical because, you know, being an entrepreneur it's hard.
Sure is. It sure is. But discipline is remembering what you really want.
Okay, so you ask them why they want, what they want to achieve. What's the next question?
The next question, I think, is the best question in business, and probably the most violated question in business. Is fundamental, and that is, who are your customers? Who are your clients? What do they want, and how do you know? Do you have a systematic method of gaining data, information from that client group or groups of clients about the services, products that you're going to provide at a price point they want to pay? Do you know what it is, or is your assessment anecdotal, either from your own personal experience in the past, or I had a lunch with Joe so-and-so, he's a kind of an expert in this area, and he thought it would be a good idea. My dad thought it would be a good idea. I had golf with a couple of guys, we talked around on the golf course. Anecdotal data. We don't really have going in data from the client group that says, yes, they will pay for this goods or service that you're providing. I'll give you a classic example if I can. This is real world, but there is a company that I know that has created an elegant software targeted on a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so they're the David, and they want to go after the Goliath. Well, when they get in front of the key clients in that group and lay out their software model, they get the feedback. That is really impressive, and it is elegant, and it does have a few features that Goliath doesn't have. But Goliath is good enough. We're satisfied with it, and we just really don't want to go through the expense and the sturm and drang of making the changeover from David to Goliath. So no thanks. Well, we know how that story is going to end.
Oh, yeah.
But we know how that story is going to end.
Yeah.
Unless they change their approach, a different client group, and so on. But that, I think, is one of the fundamental...
But why not find that out before they put the money into writing the software?
Exactly. And so can you imagine creating a strategy to provide... to focus on a client group that you don't really know what it is they want. The strategy won't work.
I recently went to the folks I call on. I thought I knew what they wanted, and it wasn't anything fancy. I just went and said, hey, what do you want from me? And I got some answers that were different than what I would have thought.
Exactly. And so it doesn't have to be an elaborate process or a complicated one, but they need to have a systematic way of staying in touch.
And I want to make sure to get this next question because it's so important.
Okay.
Talk about the importance of leaders considering what they do well and what they don't do so well.
Sure. Well, it's absolutely imperative also that a CEO think about how they can make big picture impact on a company, particularly a smaller company. So they want to make big picture impact. Well, they're going to do that if they're working in their strengths. So they need to be able to articulate, understand what their strengths are. A lot of techniques for doing that, a lot of assessments, but yes, the CEO should be working in their strength 80% of the time. The reality is that they're very busy, there's a lot of activity, but they oftentimes are not focused on their strengths. There's just a lot of activity here, but it's busyness. The other piece of that is not only should they be working in their strengths, so they should ensure that everyone on their leader team in particular know their strengths and are working in their strengths as well. The whole purpose of an organization is to maximize the strengths of everyone involved, minimize their weaknesses. So you and I working together, my strengths will compensate for your weaknesses and vice versa. We've got each other's blind spots, but that's only working, in fact, if we're both working in our strengths.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's I came across research in the 80s when I was in school, and I've had a great career because of knowing those strengths. And so, folks, Dick Wallace, his website is thealternativeboard.com. Again, thealternativeboard.com. Thanks so much for being here. Hey, we'll be right back.
It's a pleasure.